Hi, I'm Milton Rendell and welcome to Real News Friday. Another interesting week. Sales volume still continue to go fairly well, 894. Stock levels, 8,525. Down about 1% on the last 4 weeks. Down 20% on a year ago. So basic sales seems to have steadied itself up. It seems to be around that 900 mark fairly consistently now. I thought there may have been a bigger adjustment than that after the last COVID lockdown, but obviously not. I think there was a bit of an impact more on the rental side in terms of people being able to view properties and being able to move. So the rental volume or the rental stock level out there at the moment, 2,770, down 6%, down 2% on what it was 4 weeks ago, and down 25% a year ago. So obviously 6% in a week's obviously a clear indication, a clear adjustment from where we were. Having said that, the June vacancy rates were the highest that had seen for 10 months. So once again, seeing a bit of a variation in the marketplace. Now, a couple of quick questions people have been asking me lately is, how far do I increase my rent? And my answer is really quite simple. Got to be mindful of rent increases. Don't get me wrong, they should be occurring and we should be adjusting back to where we previously were, or best that we possibly can. But we're still got to see what's affordable out in the marketplace as well. So just be conscious of that. I'm hearing some ridiculous attempts by landlords, not from our landlords, but some out in the field where people are asking ridiculous amounts and they're not getting it, although they tell people they are. The thing that I would be conscious of more than anything is that you've got to make sure that if you want your tenants to be long-term, you may get a short-term gain, but you'll look for your long-term plan, if you like. The other thing is, I also mentioned to a number of owners, there's on the flip side, we've got some landlords, not in our portfolio, but I'm hearing of it, that are over the top, and then on the other extreme we have landlords who are reluctant to bring rents up. Now, I think you still have to bring them up, and I'll tell you why. It's very simple. It's a thing called maintenance. Every year your property will need maintenance, and you need to keep, if you want to maintain a property at a certain level for the tenant, you need to allow for that, and roughly about 10% of your revenue that you receive in a year. So budget of between, say, $1,500 to $2,000 a year isn't unreasonable for a property. Now you say, oh, I probably won't spend that much, but that's okay. If you allow that, it allows for later on to do major changes if you need e.g. painting, replacement of gutters. Things wear out, and many people don't think that far ahead. And it's interesting, one of the biggest challenges we have as real estate agents, I think a lot of agents would agree with me of this, is the expectation of some landlords in terms of what they think the property should look like when a tenant leaves. Now, if, for example, a person's rented a place for 2 years, that's a considerable amount of time. If you consider that they're going in and out that front door, probably 10 times a day with family, things like that. You take that over 2 years, a lot of reasonable wear and tear that will occur to the front door, to the passageway, how many times the toilet's flushed, etc., etc. We have to allow for that, and if the best way to emphasise or to understand that is just look at your own home. Now, and I've been in my home now, we've constructed ours 7 years ago. I look at my house today, and there's lots of little bits of wear and tear. Now, my wife's really pedantic, I'm pretty careful, all the rest of it. But we still, after 7 years, we're still going to have chips in our walls, and our carpets are going to look a little bit sadder, and a few other things. I think landlords have to understand, over time, a property will change. And as a real estate agent, we have to be fair and reasonable in our assessment of how that is. Now, I have a few landlords going, no, you're wrong, it's got to be back to exactly how it was when the person moves in. We do have to allow for reasonable wear and tear. That's what the tenant's also paying for in terms of when you're setting the rent. It's about how you budget your money once you receive that money over the long term. It's about your strategy of how you handle the property as well as how we handle it. It's about your way you're looking at your property. Properties are not raffle tickets, or lottery tickets I should say, in the fact that it should always be what you want it to be. When you go in to start managing properties, or taking on a property, or buying a property, or renting out a property, there's effort. taken into that, and people got to understand the whole process. And one of the part of the processes is that properties do have wear and tear. Hot water services do burn out. Fuses go, etc., etc. It all happens. The tap in the kitchen, if you can imagine over a 5-year period, how many times is that turned on? It's going to wear and tear. These things wear, nothing is perfect in this world. And so I suppose I'm probably overemphasizing this, but the amount of landlords that I see that don't allow for that in their budgeting throughout the year is pretty common. Don't get me wrong, we got some sensational landlords that allow for most things, but there's nothing worse than we got a landlord who just won't spend money to do small repairs in the short term, and then later on when it turns into major repairs, they start to, probably the word grizzle is probably a good one, being polite about what's going on, and generally it's because of this lack of planning by the landlord in conjunction with the agency. Don't get me wrong, we've got to do our bit as well, but when you do receive an inspection report, do pay attention to it, and particularly what an agent advises you needs maybe is a small repair today, maybe saving you thousands of dollars in the future. Anyway, just a bit of an insight into property management for today. All the best, and look forward to speaking to you again next week. In the meantime, check out realestateplus.com.au.